for UNESCO. Oh, we're going. Never mind.
We're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we will just give it a minute for folks to make their way in from the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wouldn't worry about a quiet Q&A session. We've had a lot of questions at every single talk.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's nice to have something so interactive.
Okay.
Sometimes it does take a minute for folks to find their way in. So
okay, panelists, attendees. Okay.
Yeah, so we can just hang out a minute, and I will trim all this pre-talk, small talk off the recording. There we go. Okay, it's finally being sent to the lobby, so now folks should be able to get in. Yeah, this Zoom conferences platform is a new product that just came out, and I think they haven't quite worked all the bugs out yet. Like every time I contact Zoom support with a question about this product, the poor support person is like, I don't know. I've never used this.
They're like, have you tried YouTube?
Exactly. You tried just live streaming to Facebook?
Yeah.
All right, folks are finding their way in. Good morning or evening, everybody. We're going to give it a minute for folks to find their way into the talk. Hi, Pius. Pius, I was just having a conversation with some other linguists about that Eckhard-Wolff paper you sent about the label indigeneity in Africa, which is a tricky one. It sparked a lot of linguist conversation. So I'm excited to talk more about that with you later. Hello, folks. All right, good morning, everybody. Good evening. We'll give it just one more minute for folks to come in from the lobby. This is early in the morning for everybody on the West Coast of North America, and sort of after work, I think, for everybody in Europe and Africa. So
yeah,
people may be having breakfast or getting their evening tea or whatever they're doing. All right. Looks like everybody is able to find their way in. So in just a moment, we can start. All right. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to day 5 of the Festival of Indigenous Languages. We're so excited to be here with you yet again to hear some wonderful talks today. Hi, greetings from Helsinki. And today we have the great pleasure of welcoming Dr. Ibrahima Cisse, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about his work in Mali. But before we get started, just the usual technical notes. This session is being recorded. So if you ask a question in the Q&A or type in the chat, your name may appear in the recording. Just be aware of that. And please ask any questions you have. Share your own experiences and thoughts in the chat or the Q&A. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Coleman Donaldson to introduce our speaker.
All right, thank you so much. I feel honored to be able to present a friend and a scholar, Ibrahima Cisse, who I had the pleasure of meeting when we were doing some linguistic training in Ghana to be better field linguists. But Dr. Cisse is not just schooled in field linguistics, but he actually did his PhD at Leiden University in the Netherlands, and he worked on language acquisition while he was there, and also had, I think it was a co-tutelle. He kind of had a PhD between Leiden and the University of Grenoble in France. And he did a wonderful study on language acquisition amongst bilingual children. And perhaps he'll be talking about some of those insights today. Now he is a senior lecturer at l'Institut de Pédagogie Universitaire in Bamako, and he also is an education consultant for UNESCO there. So it's my pleasure to say Idanse Karamoro. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to your talk just like everyone else here. And if anyone has questions, feel free to post them in the chat as we go. I will keep tabs of them and then pass them on to Ibrahima and get the discussion going when we're doing our talk.
Thank you very much, Karamoro Inchi. Well, this is an informal gathering, so I'm trying to be less formal than what we expect in academic presentation, and that's part of it. The information I have been given. This is very informal, but let me use the expression, ladies and gentlemen. Huh? That's ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Bamako, the capital city of Mali in West Africa. I would like to thank Amanda, Anna, and all the ELP team, and also the partners for organizing this festival dedicated to celebrating indigenous languages. That's within the framework of the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. My warm greetings and thanks also to my friend and colleague, Dr. Coleman Donaldson. It's really a pleasure to have you as a host. I would like to
wish we were
thank
having
those.
tea together instead, but this will suffice for now.
Sorry?
I wish we were having tea together instead, but this will suffice for now.
I'm looking forward to having you at home in Bamako in the coming months, hopefully. I would like also to thank those who are watching us, the audience, and I'm looking forward to hearing their questions, because I'm sure that that's going to be very interesting, as some of the audience probably are from Mali, and nowadays we have a heated debate about the place of national languages in rebuilding the country. As we have also a very diverse audience, some people are familiar with some of the concepts we are talking about when we're talking about revitalization and multilingualism, but some of the people probably are not familiar with some of the concepts. So I'm going also to try to make it as accessible as possible in the way I'm presenting things. So as some of you probably know, there are 7,000 languages in the world, but it is projected that before the end of the 21st century, hundreds of them will disappear. Some things should be done to preserve and promote endangered languages, as each of them bears the wisdom, the knowledge, and history of its speakers. To do so, we need to build networks of activists, linguists, decision makers, and other people and institutions interested in working on the issue. We know also that language rights, human rights, education rights, good governance, all these topics and issues are interdependent, and that language issues must be taken into account in any strategy to reach the sustainable development goals. Donaldson has already presented me, but I would like just to add some few words about why I should be talking here probably today. I have spent about a decade working to promote national languages and multilingualism in Mali. I started working with SIL, the Summer Institute of Linguistics, for 2 years, working on languages and education in the formal education system, and also in the non-formal one through literacy classes. I have also worked as, I'm still working for an association called Cercle Linguistic Bamako, which is an association which promotes the use of the study, use, and all issues related to Malian languages. And within the framework of this, the work I'm doing with the Cercle Linguistic Bamako, I have invited linguistic teachers from Mali, Europe, and the United States to come and talk about the importance of multilingualism, talking about language issues. Could be also, we talked also about issues related to writing in indigenous writing systems. And Donaldson was one of the people who have presented a topic at the Cercle Linguistic Bamako. I have been teaching multilingualism and linguistic diversity. I have been hired at the university to teach these two, multilingualism and linguistic diversity. So this is really the issues I have been working on for years now. And as a consultant at UNESCO, I work on language issues, but related to peace and inclusion in Mali. But I have to say one thing here. This is a disclaimer. I'm not talking on behalf of UNESCO. This is really a personal perspective on this issue, and this has nothing to do with UNESCO as an institution. So I'm very happy to share with you what inspired and encouraged me in the past decade of work and what I hope to see happening in the promotion of linguistic diversity and multilingualism in Mali over the next decade. I'm speaking from a country located in West Africa called Mali, a country which hosts about 60 languages, a land which is also famous for its history, because it's a place where we had very famous empires in the Middle Ages. From the Middle Ages actually up to the 19th century, we have very well-known empires and also kingdoms in this area. Probably you don't know the name Mali, but you have heard of a word of the name Timbuktu. Well, Timbuktu is a town in Mali, and it does exist. It's a real town. For some people probably think it as a mythical city. Here in Mali, there are a few endangered languages. I think there are two endangered languages, actually. One in the north, the second one is in the south, and it's Banka in the region of Sigasso. But the main threat to linguistic diversity, as far as I understand, comes from the language policy and planning. The policy I'm talking about has its foundations rooted deep into the colonial time, and it is radically different from what is known in terms of management of linguistic diversity in West Africa before the colonial time. So we have two time slots, one before the colonial time and one after the colonial time. Now, let me take you back in the past in order just to do a kind of overview of how linguistic diversity was perceived at that time, or at least how it wasn't perceived, because we have no record talking about linguistic diversity per se. These are hypotheses, but very, let's say, very kind of knowledgeable or knowledged hypotheses. They are based on what we know from other issues in the area. But before we talk about all of these things, we know that diversity didn't increase in that area. It was there. I mean, the same diversity that we have nowadays was there in the Middle Ages and after the Middle Ages up to today. So what does it mean? It means that there is no increase in linguistic diversity. Fulani and Fulfulde was there in the Middle Ages. Bambara and Bambara people were there in the Middle Ages. All these languages, or most of them, were already there at that time. But for example, one of the empires in the Middle Ages in Mali was the Ghana Empire. We know that that was a kingdom which was led by a specific ethnic group called the Soninke. And despite the fact that the Soninke were the main, the leaders of the empire, Soninke was not a language which was imposed on other communities at that time. It was one among other languages, and people could probably use all of their languages at that time. The king or people who are working with him do not impose the people to use Soninke when talking to other people. People learn Soninke because they need Soninke. They use it because they need it, but there was no language policy imposing it on people. We know also that there is another empire which came after the Ghana Empire collapsed. That empire is called Mali Empire, which is very, very, very famous also because one of the kings of that empire was Kanku Musa. Probably you don't know that name, but he went to Mecca from Mali as a Muslim. He decided to go to the holy place for pilgrimage. And what is interesting is that he took a lot of gold to Mecca, and that was the time when other Arabs have started to hear about the name of Mali as a place in West Africa, and it is a land where there is a lot of gold. The third empire I would like to talk about, well, before I go to the third empire, talking about Mali Empire, we know also that that empire covers all of the current West African countries, but nowhere have we seen or have we heard or have we read any document saying that Malinke, which is the ethnic group of the kings, the Malinke language was imposed on people, or that people were forced to speak Malinke. People were using their languages and using their cultures where they live. The third empire was the Songhai Empire, and the same thing can be said here too. And then after that, we have kingdoms like the Segu Kingdom. Probably you have heard about Marie-Louise Condé, who is a little, well, she is famous writer, and the Masina Kingdom, and all other kingdoms after that. So linguistic diversity was not seen as an obstacle in governance, nor was it seen as an obstacle also in education. So that's the history of this place. That's what people used to do. That's what people know. That's probably the DNA, so to speak, of the people when it comes to talking about linguistic diversity. Now, something happened after around the beginning of the 19th century. French colonization started from 1895 to 1960. During that time, Mali was part of the French colonial empire. And something started to happen. Linguistic diversity is seen now as a problem for the French colonizers. French is the language of the administration. That's their decision. They decided to have French as the language of its administration. They decided also that local languages were not to be allowed in schools, the schools built by the colonial power. Local languages and cultures were generally depreciated in schools and administrations, while French language and culture were celebrated. Since independence, and that took place in 1960, we had many regimes. Well, we had about four to five regimes, more or less, which took power in Mali. And all of these regimes have more or less taken the French model as the model of the linguistic model to be taken for the governing body. So a centralized centralized power where everything should be in the hands of the central government, and in order to control everything, a language, a unique language, should be used according to their perspective in order to make a kind of homogeneous nation. So linguistic diversity from a government perspective here is perceived as a kind of problem for the political leaders. Now, the different presidents who came on power have decided more or less to decolonize minds vis-a-vis this issue of linguistic diversity. But in general, we can say that, for example, today, there are many schools in which local languages are completely banned, and kids can be punished physically because they are speaking their languages in some schools. The majority of the schools in Mali use French as a language of instruction. Now, we have in this country, we have about 60 languages, and among these 60 languages, from a political perspective, 13 have the status of national language. What is a national language in Mali? Well, it is a language which can be used in the education system as a language of instruction, just to make it easy to understand, and also a language which can be used in semi-formal or even formal situations. But among these 13 national languages, one stands out. I mean, there is one which is an outstanding language because it is spoken by 80% of Malians, and that language is called Bambara. Now, the second category of languages we have is French, and that's the official language. Now, what I would like you to understand and probably to keep in mind as I speak for the remaining part of my speech is that French as an official language is spoken only by 15% of Malians. And that's the language in which the government is speaking to people. So the government of Mali use a language which is spoken by only 15% of people to talk to Malians. And what is interesting about this language is that it is learned in school. So it's only people who went to school who speak French. And as you know, or as you well, probably you know, the rate of schooling is very low, or still low in my country. So it means that actually very few people speak that language, although it is the official language of a country. Now, why is it the official, or how is it, how come that it is the official language of a country? So after independence, the first government decided to keep that language of a colonial power. Some people pretending that trying to choose one among the other languages would lead to a civil war, they decided to stick to that language. So we have in the constitution of the constitution that we have nowadays, and which dates back to the 1990s. It is said on Article 25 that French is the official language, and the law will determine the method for making official and promoting national languages. So that's the constitution about the status of French as an official language. So beside French and the 13 national languages, we have about 44 minority languages. So I was saying when I started talking that among these 44 languages, we have 2 endangered languages. Now, let me talk about what has inspired me most in the past decade of work in the promotion of multilingualism in Mali. Well, all political regimes from the 1960s to nowadays have acknowledged the importance of promoting local languages in decolonizing minds. We have international and national experts and organizations who are working to describe and promote local languages. Among the international and national experts, I can talk about Professor Ingses Katum from Oslo University, who has written a lot about the use of national languages in education in Mali. We have Professor Jeffrey Heath from University of Michigan in the United States, who worked a lot also on language documentation, especially Dogon languages, and now he is working also on Bozo languages. We have also Mahamoudou Sy, who is a professor of mathematics at the Imperial College of London, and who is writing nowadays mathematics books in Fulfulde. Sadio Ba and the Association Peral, who contributed to providing a version of Facebook in Fulfulde, for example. Mohamedou Husuba, who is in Germany and who is engaged in the construction of the Firefox browser in Songhai, one of the languages of Mali. SIL teams here in Mali who are working on language documentation and also literacy classes in our languages. The African Academy of Languages is based in Mali, or in Bamako specifically, although it is not doing a lot as far as I can see, but it's based here. So that's symbolically very important for us. The Academy of Malian Languages also is doing a lot as it's working to elaborate a map of Malian languages of Mali, and it is also working on a project to promote the 13 national languages to the status of official languages. We have all these international organizations doing reports on a daily basis, calling people to promote mother tongue based education, like, for example, the recent reports by the World Bank on the importance of using mother tongue in school, and also UNESCO with its various reports on this issue. We have Fondation Hirondelle, which is I think it's an organization from Switzerland, which has a radio station here in Bamako, which is broadcasting in 4 Malian languages. Let's say 5 Malian languages: Bambara, Fulfulde, Tamashek, Songhai, and French, because French is also one of the Malian languages now. We have many private TV channels which are broadcasting in national languages: Renouveau TV, TV, Lafia TV, etc. We have thousands of primary bilingual public schools using national language and French as languages of instructions. We have nowadays about 12 of these national languages used in primary school. We have these primary bilingual education schools in all regions of Mali. Textbooks and subjects are taught from first grade to sixth grade in all of these languages. That's for the primary school, but it's the same thing also, well, not the same thing, but we have also national languages used as subject at the secondary schools and also at the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics. We have various texts translated from European languages into our national languages. We have also online courses available now in our local languages, for example, Angata with Coleman himself, who is here with us. But we have also Soninke people who are working on other applications online, apps online, who makes it easier for people to learn Soninke, Fulfulde, and all this stuff, people in Paris in particular. Now, I would like, this is very positive. I'm really happy about all this, what is happening and what has been happening this 10 years. So I would like now to tell you what I hope to see happening in the promotion of multilingualism over the next decade. I hope that the government of Mali will elaborate and implement a comprehensive and competence-based language program for the formal education system. We have up to 4 or 5 languages used in the formal education system, some of them as just subjects, and others are part of the languages used to teach. So but we don't have a comprehensive and competence-based program for these languages. It's really something put there, here and there, without any coherence, global overall coherence. The second thing I hope the government will do is to take inspiration from out of school multilingual practices and build a flexible language usage in school. I mean, learning languages is not at all it's not at all easy. I mean, because people are in I mean, the strategies, the pedagogical strategies, the didactic approaches, all these things are built around things which are kind of too rigid, and we need to have something very flexible. Because if we look at Malians, for example, in general, we are all multilinguals. We learned languages on a daily basis in our villages, in the streets of the towns, even going to school, but you don't learn the official language of school. You end up learning the languages of your friends and so on and so forth. So we need also to take inspiration from these ways of learning languages in order to make it easier for people to learn languages within the formal education system. French and national languages to be used in public recruitment tests, because unfortunately nowadays, French is the only language used in the public recruitment tests. Our national languages are excluded. So it means that if you don't speak French, if you don't write French, you cannot be a civil servant. You cannot get a job in the public administration. And I hope that this will change. And to make it so that it changes, I propose that I hope that 13 of the 13 national languages will be in the near future co-official languages beside French. I have talked about Article 25 of the Constitution, and I think that it's going to be useful to change that article to make it to open the possibility for people to use their national languages. And to do so, I propose that the article be changed into French is the official language. Any official communication in French must be followed by a full translated version or at least a summary in one of the national languages. Law will determine the method for making official and promoting national languages. So I'm not calling to kick off French out of Mali. What I'm saying is that we need to have a flexible language policy in order to make it adaptable and adapted to our realities. Another thing I hope will happen is that the government is going to take the use of national languages as their means also of getting closer to the populations. And here I would like to call for to call that to ask the government to make sure that, for example, all communication officers be bilingual French plus one national language, so that they can also communicate, read and write the national languages beside French in their communications. The public channel ORTM TV and radio station should also try to change its program in order to give more space to national languages. Nowadays, probably, I think that it's broadcasting around 80% of its program in French, while, as you remember, I told you only 50% of people speak French in Mali. So as far as I'm concerned, I will keep on fighting for an inclusive and flexible language policy and planning, which mirrors and promotes linguistic diversity and multilingualism in Mali. I'm convinced that the main threat to linguistic diversity in Mali is the current language policy, which imposes a language spoken by a minority on the Malians. And promoting national language will help unleash the intellectual and political potential of people by breaking down the linguistic barriers built during the colonial times and for the interests of the colonies. This was really for the colonial people for the colonies in order to get control over the country. And we don't need this anymore. So Coleman, I think I will stop here. Over to you to tell me what is next. I'm also happy to do a summary in Bambara full day.
Sure.
Well,
so I've been posting some things in here. We have a few comments from people and stuff. There's not a specific question, but now would be a good time if anybody is thinking about everything that was said and you have specific questions that come to mind, feel free to throw them in the chat and I will relay them to Ibrahima. Otherwise, would you like to do a brief summary, Ibrahima, for some people watching that might be in Mali or elsewhere, just about your kind of final message?
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody that speaks English or French can forgive us for a minute or two.
Yeah. So let's start with full day and then get back to your language, Donaldson, Bambara. Well, donc jinnomi wiide de yimɓe balɗe ɗe on koddiri hono wiyete yimɓe no kala haala ɗelle Mali pour wadde ɗelle Mali ɗen gattaka e kanankoɓe ɓen kalta ɗelle meɗen hono wattade tawe no wiyete kananke Mali halda e Malien en tubakure tawe no Malien en do yimɓe temedere fuu yimɓe 15 tan nanta tubakure yimɓe 90 ɓe fuu nanta tubakure neɗɗo ka wawa laamaɗe yimɓe ɗe haalde e yimɓe ɗengal ngal paamata miɗa miila de no wiyete ɗum no hani waylitede yimɓe yogaɓe ɗum mbi hono wiyete san ɗengal tubakure ngal yoppama ɗengal hengal ɓamete wona ɗengal gotal tan ɓamete ko hani de tawe ɗelle ɗe fuu ɗengal fuu no wawi joɗade ɗo jooɗi no wawi gollirede ɗo woni ɗon ɗum hani waɗede leyɗi won golliroje nondu enen en mbawa yiide ɗum saabu ko ɓuuri hewde yimɓe kaaloɓe haala ɗelle ɓe fuu France ɓe ƴewata de ɓe mbiya honno France waɗi noon ɓe gaɗiran noon hunde fuu ko France waɗi fuu kamɓe hoore maɓɓe ɓe miila ɗum woni aduna ɗum hani waɗede kamɓene ɓe anda wonko watte toon won andi goɗɗe won yimɓe no goori gueɗe goɗɗo e adunaru to hollata de tawi yimɓe fuu no hammoɗo fuu no jogui ɗengal muɗum e ɗum hatta neɗɗo no wawi andude ɗengal mo joɗɗi on tawi nde haaja joomum no wawi haldude de ɗengal muɗum abbade neɗɗo yiyay neɗɗo le Mali ɗo ummiɗo wuuro fa e wuuro no dilla wiya kañum yeeyi wuuro ngoɗo de ronki joɗade toon saabu wala fuu nano ɗengal muɗum ɗum waɗa e abada donc ɗum jinnomi hollude yimɓe ɗelle ɗe no kaani yimɓe no kaani nawtorade ɗelle meɗen ɗe ɗen kaani nawtorade ɗe yimɓe kalta ɗe yimɓe nanata ɗe yimɓe paamata sani aɗa yiiɗi yimɓe gollida e maɗa fof sana kaala ko famata sana kaala ko haalta sana anda ko yiɗi hono sini e bannu wawa waɗede e ɗengal ngal neɗɗo famata. Now back to Bambara.
Well, let me just to give us a break, so people that don't understand, but I do think it would be important for Bambara. But I just wanted to chime in, and you can think about it, and people that are might be not understanding Fulani or Bambara won't totally tune out. We had one question from Alice Taff, who asked specifically, why are some of the languages endangered? So you mentioned the two of them. And then the other question that came in is from Pius Akumbu. Excuse me if I am not pronouncing correctly. He says, thank you, Ibrahima, for this detailed presentation on the Malian situation, which in several ways resembles the Cameroonian language policy. You said there are only 2 endangered languages in Mali. Is that to say that the rest of the 44 minority languages in Mali are still vital and transmitted regularly to younger generations, including those who have moved to cities for schools and work? So 2 questions that are good. Those might get some of our other audience members thinking about things they'd like to say or ask. And then otherwise, Ibrahima, maybe you can tell us briefly what point of your talk you were covering in Fulfulde, and then if you'd like to say it in another language for the audience, then go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was saying in Fulfulde that we need really to promote our languages, and the government should take into account the issue that the issue of understand. It's just well, let me put it in that way. Understanding is a core element of communication. I mean, if people don't understand, they cannot follow you, they cannot do anything. The government is trying to make sure that people follow them in their development strategy and all these issues. But unfortunately, it is using a language that people don't understand. So people cannot help or cannot be part of that. They cannot engage in the government policies because they are excluded through language barriers. And I was saying that this is not normal, and we should call for a more inclusive linguistic model at the government level. Now, to the is it okay if I answer the 2 questions and then give you the floor, Coleman?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the 2 endangered languages, this is what we have on the UNESCO Atlas of endangered languages in Africa. So I have just quoted this part. I really don't know how it has been assessed. I didn't look at the methodology, but I recall that it's probably, I think that Matthias Bresinger was the coordinator of the UNESCO Atlas of Endangered Languages in Africa. I might be wrong, but that used to be the case. So really, I don't know anything about these endangered languages. Although I have read something about the Banka language in Sigasso, which is the 2nd endangered language. That one is endangered by Bambara. So all the speakers speak also Bambara as a 2nd language, and the intergenerational transmission is completely or almost stopped. So that's for this first question. Now for the second question from Pius, a dear friend. Yeah, actually, our language policies are quite similar because, as you know, they are all inherited from the colonial powers, and we have been colonized by, well, French has colonized also Cameroon or part of Cameroon. Now, I don't know really about the 44 of a national language, minority languages. I really don't know. I know that in cities, the capacity, the possibility for parents to transmit their language to their kids is low. That's not only in Bamako, but it's also in the other urban areas. And we can see that through our well, friends and colleagues who are around us and who are struggling to transmit their mother tongue to their kids, while well, it's quite difficult to do so. So from that perspective, many languages are endangered in the urban areas because making sure that your kids speak your language is not easy. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I don't know if that's an answer to your questions, but that's what I have to say.
The last one that we have, which is similar a bit, was from Zofia. Thank you for your presentation. Could you please elaborate on the vitality of the 2 indigenous languages? So no, I think we've covered that. And she said, is there any other language community that started the language shift apart from formal institutional use? And I think I think you've covered that a bit. The last question in hers is, how strong is the prestige of the languages apart from French? And I think she is referring to, in general, the prestige of other local languages or national languages, whichever basket you want to put them in.
Yeah. Well, actually, it depends where you are. for example, Bambara is associated to city and city life. So it's kind of civilized with thousands of codes language. So people in some rural areas speaking Bambara is to show that you are in touch with city and big cities and all this stuff and the modern life and all these issues. So from that perspective, Bambara is perceived in some areas in Mali and by some people as a language of prestige and as being a very good language to learn. In some other places, for the same language, Bambara, that language is perceived as a colonial language because after independence, the first people who went as administrators were people who have Bambara as a mother tongue. So when they went in some places, instead of using French, they use also most of the time Bambara. So administration is associated with colonization. And finally, these people are associated with colonization and people perceive Bambara as a colonial language. That's very much the case up north in Mali, in areas like Timbuktu, areas like Gao, areas like Kidal up north. These are big cities up north where we have Songhai, Arab, Fulani, Tamashek communities. For them, the first administrators who came into their areas, into these areas, these people are native speakers of Bambara, have Bambara as a first language. And for them, these people are colonizers like the French. So you see, it depends, really depends. One cannot just say that's how it is. We know also that there are some languages which are also whose speakers are shifting to other languages like Bambara because their languages are perceived negatively in the communities, and that's the case for Bobo, which is a language spoken in the center by the border with Burkina Faso. That's also the case of Mianka. That's another language also in that area. So it depends, really, it depends. But there are positive and negative stereotypes associated with these languages. And one cannot say just that's how it is perceived. It depends on people and communities.
Great, thank you. We have a couple interesting comments in the chat here. Some people were saying, Zofia said, in my experience, the UNESCO Atlas is useful and necessary. It's a bit outdated, especially in the case of East Asian languages like the Ryukyus, where endangerment is much more severe than on the Atlas. So maybe something that applies to West Africa as well. We had an interesting thing in the chat earlier, Ibrahima, about the Malian government's health app they developed called SOS Corona, which is only in French. And Martin Benjamin was commenting on the fact that it had a very pitiful number of downloads in a country of 20 million people, and that it could be related to the fact that it was in French. Anna let us know that ELP is working on a catalog of endangered languages, so the UNESCO source might not be the definitive one in the future. And what else? Oh, we have another question, and then I have one. The question was, is there anything that you can say about the All Children Reading Project, which was started in 2020, about books in Sonenke, Senufo, and Malian Sign Language? So I'm not sure. There's a link here. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but that is a question from Phil Davison. And my question, Ibrahima, was a bit about, you had spoken earlier about how pre-colonially there was no push for people to have to learn Malinke or other languages. And I was wondering if you could comment to what extent that could also be tied to the role that Arabic played historically, that because Quranic education, the medium of instruction, or at least the medium of scholarship, was primarily in Arabic, nobody was forced to learn or had to become an Arabic speaker to become a scholar. But is the fact that not everybody was a scholar, that education was a very limited resource, is that also part of the reason that there wasn't a push for more people to learn one language over the other? Because without a widespread literate or culture of literacy or literary practices. I'm wondering if you could shed some light on that older period. So sorry if that wasn't the best formulated question.
That's okay. It's clear. Well, thank you very much. So let me go through the comment. The first one about the SOS Corona or app in French. I'm almost sure that there is a link between it's related to the fact that it's in French. People who speak French or who write French have other sources to get information from. You don't need to download that app. So well, unfortunately, people don't the government officials or officials in general do not see the importance of languages, yet they are missing a lot when they do not take into account the language issue. Anna was talking about this source coming from ELP coming soon about the endangered languages. And I do recognize that there are various sources about the endangered languages, and probably the methodologies are not similar or are not the same, or also some of the data is probably not updated. And so that's my bad. I should probably have checked that before. But anyway, I think that as far as I know, there are only these two languages. Even on the ethnologue, I think that we're talking about the degrees of vitality of languages, but endangered or highly endangered, I don't know really. Books in Soninke and all this stuff, no, I haven't heard about that. Now, but back to your question, Coleman. I think that there is I don't see any link about the number of intellectuals, so to speak, or literate in Arabic, and the fact that people were not trying to impose one language. I think that people were not doing that because they are not very familiar with that strategy, and even in the Quranic schools, they didn't come into that area with a strategy to impose the Arabic language as a language of instruction. The proof is that, for example, well, in my family, my family, they are all Quranic school teachers, actually, my dad and all my grandparents, all these people. Kids from all the areas near my village come to our family to learn Quran with one of my uncles. But these people come with, sometimes some of them speak Songhai, some of them speak Dogon, some of them speak other languages, local languages. When they come to our village, the language of instruction is Fulfulde, because my uncle speaks Fulfulde to them, and he speaks only Fulfulde. But all of these kids speak Fulfulde plus their language. So there is a common medium that makes it easier for him to interact with his students. And that made it easy. And I think that probably that's the same thing in other Quranic schools in these areas, but I really don't know about other people. But that's my personal experience about this issue. And Arabic is not the Quran. They distinguish two things. You can be a literate in Quran and be a good Quranic school teacher without speaking Arabic or knowing anything about Arabic, because you just learn by heart and you just recitate words. And that's how people perceive it. And those who are learning Arabic learn it in order to get access to a higher level of knowledge, and that's something different. And very often people don't go toward that level. And even there, when they learn Arabic, I have this quote from Amadou Ampateba, a scholar from West Africa, from Mali, who was saying that during the 1890s, there was a scholar in Banyagara who was saying that he despises people who use Arabic just to boast and show that they are knowledgeable people, yet people don't at all speak that language. So you are speaking to yourself. I mean, nobody understands what you're saying anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. We have some comments in here. Frederica had said, Tal Tamari has worked on spoken multilingualism in Quranic education. We have some more comments about the catalog of endangered languages. Frederica also shared some bits about the role of oh, sorry, I'm losing where I was in this thing. The role of the colonial army in spreading Bambara. So I think that came in light of the discussing Bambara's prestige and spread today.
Mm.
And yes, there's another question here. What are some of the most common attitudes towards multilingualism and the use of local languages in official domains? So that's a question from Anna. So is there widespread support for the kind of practice, or how would you describe it?
Well, you know, for example, it's really interesting to look at the map of Mali, the language map of Mali, to understand what's happening or the realities here. People, the majority of people live in the south. In the south, the dominant language is Bambara. And that dominant language, the native speakers of that language are about 30% of Malians, and they don't speak generally any other language. So they speak their mother tongue, and that mother tongue is a lingua franca in Mali. So literally, it's a way to say that diversity is of course there, but diversity is more frequent or more visible outside the western part of the country. And all of the debate in Bamako during these last weeks is related to the fact that when we're talking about the use of our languages, the use of national languages, people understand the use of Bambara. And there is a problem because people are saying that, well, Bambara is just one of these national languages. So diversity is actually outside of native speakers of Bambara. It's all around this area, but ce n'est pas porté principalement par les locuteurs de la langue Bambara. C'est porté plutôt par les locuteurs d'autres langues. So they don't understand that. So I think that this is really important to take into account when talking about diversity. And because they are the majority, for them, diversity is when you have French plus Bambara. And even the government perception about diversity is like that. I mean, they have done a lot to have an inclusive communication when they add to French another language like Bambara. Now, but I want to add one thing, Coleman, talking about the role of colonial army in spreading of Bambara. I'm thinking about the role of Quranic school in the spread of in spreading Fulfulde. For example, Fulfulde became a language, a lingua franca in the central part of Mali, also through education, through Quranic schools, because most of the Quranic school teachers are Fulfulde speakers. And when you go to these people as a student, there you end up learning Fulfulde. And when you go back home as a Quranic school teacher, you have not only, I have a Dogon friend of mine who was saying that once you get out of a Quranic school where the teacher is Fulani, you come back as somebody who has the Fulani culture and the Fulani language, in addition to your language, of course. And local people perceive you as a Fulani because you have this Fulani manner and all this stuff. So it's probably interesting also to see how this Quranic school helped spread Fulfulde in the Dogon area. And nowadays it's the opposite happening. All these housewife, comment on dit les dames de ménage, les dames de ménage en fait, qui viennent à Bamako, seasonal workers, but
so
mainly maids, but maids who coming to Bamako from the Dogon country and coming to Bamako to work here. They end up learning Bambara, and once they go back, talking about prestige issues, they speak and spread Bambara. And at the end, Bambara is really being spread in the Dogon country. And nowadays, you see people preferring to use Bambara instead of using Fulfulde. So it's really interesting to see how these changes are taking place through either education, be it Quranic schools, or seasonal work through the maids coming to Bamako and going back with Bambara at home.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ibrahima, for shedding some light on some of these questions and issues. There is no last lingering questions. There might be some that got lost in there somewhere. If I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. And I promise that the next time I see you, I will buy you a tea and we can discuss it. We will call Ibrahim. It is 6 o'clock, which I think is the end of our time. So I just want to be respectful of people who have to get dinner or go to work or do whatever they have to do to live on this earth. So, Ibrahim, I know that I don't know your schedule. I have to run, but if anyone is in here that wants to discuss with Ibrahima, I could let you do that. And otherwise, Anna, who I'm not sure if she is tuned in or not, um, hey, Anna, I'm not sure if I leave if that's going to break anything. I just wanted to say that as a moderator. I think that if there's last questions, Ibrahima might be willing to say hi quickly, but then he might have to go. I don't know.
I think we do have one last question from Friedrika. If Ibrahima has time and doesn't have other pressing commitments.
Yeah, it's okay. With pleasure.
All right, I owe Frederica a tea. I'm going to run and I'm going to let you all figure this out. I'm looking forward to getting an update afterwards. Thank you for having me and bonne discussion.
Yeah, Coleman, I'm going to remove you because it may close the room if you end. So I'm just going to remove you. All right.
Do it.
Thank you.
Kambe.
Thank you, Karamo. Kambe.
Kambe, kambe.
All right, so we have one question from Friedrika. She says, Ibrahima, you have a differentiated model for multilingualism in education that is different from the French plus Bambara or mother tongue-based multilingual education model. Can you present this model in 3 sentences?
Okay, well, the education model that I had proposed at the given time is that we should probably have yeah, it's a little challenge at the end. Well, it's not. It's a pleasure talking about these issues. For example, nowadays what we have is that we have three types of formal schools from a language of instruction point of view. We have one system in which French is the only language of instructions from grade 1 till the end of the secondary school. We have another system in which French and one of the 13 national languages are languages of instruction from grade 1 to grade 6. And we have a third system in which, well, let's say these two. So just to make it simpler, these two systems. What I propose is that to merge them into just a unique system in which we will have French plus one of the national languages from grade 1 until the end of the secondary school. And also, depending on the type of university, higher education university type of university you are going to, one is going to follow, you will have either one of these national languages as a subject in order to make you proficient enough in order to work and use that language, at least to have what the European framework of languages called C2 level. You are proficient in the language to use it in any format. And this is a model that I think fits the realities and which is better for the country, because actually at the end, through probably in one generation time, we have people who are proficient in all of these languages, and we can take any decision about language policy that we want. If you want to get rid of French, you can do it. If you want to get rid of any language, you can do it. just to make it also a transition to any types of linguistic policy that a government would like to implement here. And this is really something that is also to be coherent, because we have many foreign languages in the education system. People learn them but cannot use them because they are not competence-based. They are just there because they are subject, and you learn. You can say bonjour, bonsoir, good morning, guten tag, etc., and that's it. You stop there. Yet you have spent at least 3 years. Some will spend about 5 years of their time learning these languages, but cannot go beyond good morning in that language. So try to work on that. Well, minority languages, yes. That's the debate I had with Anna. Minority languages. What I say is that, for example, nowadays what we have is that we have French as an official language. We have 13 national languages, and we have about 44 minority languages. What I propose is that the 13 national languages will go up and be co-official languages with French, and then the 44 national minority languages be given the title of national languages, and then implemented at a local level wherever they are. in order to make them useful also at the primary education system, which is also possible. So that's instead of the movement, the chaises musicales en fait. One is going to go upper, and another one is going to go up on top.
I love that description of language policy as musical chairs. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I think we have one more question from Bamidele Olookere. He says, is there any language you could classify as Pidgin or Creole in Mali? And if yes, does that Pidgin or Creole have any relationship with Nigeria Pidgin English?
No, as far as I know, no. The answer is no. Although French is tropicalized to the Malian context, and there are papers about articles about this issue written by Ingses Katum about the influence of mother tongues on spoken French for people who speak Fulfulde as L1, Bambara as L1, and also Tamashek as L1. We have that, and so at the phonological prosody, from a prosodic perspective, they have done some studies, and also even segmental, because I think that they have also taken into account the syllable structure of the French, the spoken French, and the influence of L1s on that that language. But language labeled as Pidgin or Creole, no, I don't know of any language in that category.
Right, and I guess I have one last question, if no one else does. Do you have any words of advice or encouragement for people who are trying to push for policy changes or official recognition of their own languages in their own countries?
Well, we have to do it. That job is our job. We have to do it, and we will do it, and it will be successful. Probably not now, but it will be successful, no doubt about that. Because we're fighting for inclusion, for human rights. We are not doing it for ourselves. I mean, I'm not doing that for myself. I speak French. I speak all of these languages, the 4 of them. I can manage for that, but I'm doing it for the communities. I'm doing it for the 85% of Malians who have no access to the government information, who are excluded from the management of the public affairs and all this stuff. We have to do it, and we will do it, and we are doing it, and we are moving forward. We have seen that things are moving forward. It's slow, but we will be there.
Beautiful closing thoughts. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Belatedly, thank you to Coleman Donaldson for hosting this session. Please give him our thanks. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing about your work. And I think everyone learned quite a lot about the language situation in Mali today. If anyone has questions for Dr. Cisse, do you want folks to be able to contact you?
Yes, sure.
All right. If you'd like to put your email address in the chat,
I will do that.
Can write to you. And for everyone else, I hope that you will rejoin us in about 2 hours. We will be having a talk/panel from Dr. Julia Salabank and several of her students who are working in language revitalization worldwide. Dr. Salabank recently released a free open access book called Revitalizing Endangered Languages, a Practical Guide. So this is someone who's spent a lot of time working in language revitalization. And I think that it will be a great panel. I think I see one of her students here who will be on that panel. So everybody tune in, and we will see you in a couple of hours. Let's have a virtual round of applause for Dr. Cisse. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening or afternoon.
Evening, probably. It's it's almost, yeah, it's 10 past 5. Yeah.
Well, have a good evening, Dr. Cisse.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.